All right. So I'm not going to backtrack much, but we're heading into doing listings and working with sellers a little bit. We tell you all the time, told you yesterday before we did the residential purchase agreement, that it is critical that when you're working with a buyer, that you get them in front of a lender to see what they actually qualify for. There's no sense in wasting a lot of time with anybody who just wants to see property and has no idea what they can afford anyway. So find out what they can afford and then show them just those properties. There's no sense in showing them the other ones. We have people that say, well, I like to show them one above what they want and below what they want. But I have the one that I think they want in the middle. Seriously? So you want to go out and you want to tempt somebody with this $800,000 pool home with a view and then tell them that they qualify for 650? It's a little bit of a letdown right off the bat. Doesn't make any sense to me. Same thing with way underpriced things or undersized. Why waste time showing them a 2-bedroom if they've told you that they have, 2.7 children and 2 dogs? Then why am I showing them a property that looks like it wouldn't house any of them, unless that's all they qualify for? But how do I know what they qualify for? I get them in front of a lender. Unless they come to me with a briefcase of cash, which I really don't want to see a briefcase of cash. We need to have it in a bank somewhere. But if they come to me as a cash buyer, then cash is wonderful and we love cash and we'll work with cash buyers. But other than that, we need to get them in front of a lender. Well, here's the thing that we skip sometimes. We base everything we do on pre-qualifying a buyer, which we should. I don't want to minimize that, but we don't spend a lot of time pre-qualifying the seller when we're getting ready to go out on a listing. Somebody calls and we're all excited. They call and or I'm making calls or I'm knocking doors or whatever. And somebody says, oh yeah, well, we kind of like to list our house, or we're thinking about listing our house, or that one down the street sold for $600,000 and we'd kind of like to think of moving. So who knows where you're going to get that call from? Maybe it's an aunt, maybe it's an uncle, maybe it's somebody that you've talked to in the past, maybe it's somebody that you met at the soccer game, maybe it's who knows. But you start talking to those people and we have to find out what their motivation is. And I know that sounds like too big of a deal, but are you really looking to sell now? Is that the idea? I was at this past New Year's Eve. I was at a dinner party with some friends and we're just sitting around talking. There's probably a dozen of us or something. We're just sitting around chatting and one of them says, which kind of made me feel bad. Okay. But he says, you're still in real estate, right? And I didn't necessarily want to be asked that, because you feel like when you get asked that, you feel like you dropped the ball someplace, It's like, oh, you didn't know I was in real estate. Anyway, and I said, yeah, I still, but I know that I have a little bit different task. And so some people don't know if I'm actually selling anymore versus running around to the offices and things. So a fair question. But anyway, I said, yeah, I still do a little bit. I said, for friends and family, are you one of those? And we just kind of joked back and forth and things. And he says, yeah, he says, well, Lori, that's his wife, retires in the 1st of May. And we were thinking about once she retires that we'd like to move to Utah, southern Utah, to be where we've got a son and his family and some grandkids that live there. A lot of people like to move to be by grandkids. And nothing wrong with that. I stay to be by grandkids. But anyway, so we got to chatting and started going back through kind of a pre-qualification of a seller without nailing him down to anything. I didn't pull a contract out of my pocket. But I said, all right, so yes, I still do real estate for friends and family. What are you trying to do? Well, Lori is retiring in May. So do you want to move right away? Or have you got things to put together? Or is May your drop dead date that you want to be out of here? Because remember, this is like December 31st or something, because it's a New Year's Eve party. And so we talked backwards. We didn't talk backwards, but we moved backwards. Okay, if you're trying to be on the road by May, mid-May, end of May, sometime in May, it's going to take us probably 30 days to 45 days to close an escrow. Right? So that takes us back to March, maybe. It takes us right now, the marketplace around here is 37 days on the market average. Now it's average. Somebody could write an offer on day one and we could be in escrow we could be on the market for a month or two. But I said that if you want to be out of here by mid-May or the end of May or something, then we need to talk about putting your house on the market probably in February. That won't push you too much. You don't have anywhere to go in the meantime. And so unless you have somewhere to go in the meantime, let's try to get you out somewhere when you want to be gone. Plus, if we push it more towards the end of May, you're not obligated to be anywhere by June, right? Your wife's retiring, so you're just going to be, if we took you into June a little bit, it wouldn't make any difference. Yeah, that sounds about right. But anyway, you see how we backed that up. We talked about what they wanted to try to do to try to meet that. Motivation was there because they had kids and grandkids that they wanted to move to southern Utah to be nearer. And so that motivation was in place. Timing was in place at that point in time. They knew about what kind of a time frame they were working with. And then we started talking about a few other things, and they asked me, which is important that I know the market in the area, because I'm going to do a market analysis for them, but they asked me what I thought their house would be worth. Well, who knows, for crying out loud. You know, you're sitting there, you haven't been in their house in a year or two or something, and so you don't really know. However, if you know the area well enough, if you know the marketplace that you work in well enough, then you know about what the price per square foot, average price per square foot for a medium price home, is $250, $350, whatever it happens to be. And I was doing some numbers at the front of the first of the month. I do numbers for the previous month for the company. And I was looking at some in Santa Barbara. And I know you'd think that would be a pretty expensive place, but Santa Barbara up there, the average price per square foot was $1,600. And the average home price up there was just slightly over 4 million. Now that was just for that 1 month. The previous month could have been up or down from there or whatever, but it's kind of numbers when we live in most other places. Those aren't numbers that we're used to dealing with and things. But if we lived there, I'm sure that would be a number that we were familiar with. And so, here we're sitting in the Murrieta office right now, and the price per square foot around Murrieta and things for the most part, and it varies with age and things. Those are the things we have to take into consideration. But it's around $350, give or take. And so you could start out there. But what do you really need to do? What you really need to do is you really need to get back to your office, which I told them I'd do in the next day or two. Said, you're not in that big of a rush. I'll do it here in the next couple of days. I don't want to screw up your holiday. I'll put together a market analysis, a desktop market analysis for you, which I can sit down and do off my computer. And then I'll come out to the house and we'll talk about it. We'll see what extras you might have that don't show up as part of a CMA, because when you do a CMA, and I think we go over CMAs here in another week or something, but when you do a CMA, the CMA is based basically on what's the square footage and what's the age of the home and how many bedrooms and baths do you have. And so we can talk to them about those kind of things to kind of get an advance on what we're going to go back and figure out. Because if we go back with nothing, and I don't mean just go back, I mean even get off the phone to them with nothing. If we haven't done anything to pre-qualify, what it is that they have, then we kind of are stuck a little bit. We're not stuck totally because the magic of computers allows us to get into title companies and we have access to public information through title. And if you haven't gotten with a title person, I would do that and have them give you a login to their website. And we have a lot of different, one of our preferreds is All Cal Title. And I'm sure that Autumn would give you the link to their website so that you don't even have to call them necessarily. You can just get with them. But all these are seller pre-qualifying. We're trying to get ready for this listing presentation that we're going to do maybe next week or maybe this weekend or whatever it happens to be. We're trying to get as much information as we can so that by the time we go out there, we just seem super smart. They wouldn't want to list with anybody else. We go out there with enough information to guide them in the right direction. You look smart, you know, because well, actually you are. But when you go out there with a decent presentation and things, it's usually a result of questions that you've asked ahead of time. How soon do you want to move? What do you think your price range is? They have something like, what do you owe on the house? Do you know? And so when you do your market analysis and your net sheets and things, you can find out ahead of time what you need to know to put together a presentation fit for them. And that's the key to it. The key to it is to try to pre-qualify them enough, ask them enough questions that you know their motivations, their timelines, the price they expect, some of their objections, some of their questions that they might have right now. Question that comes up all the time is, I won't say all the time, but a lot of the time, question comes up about how much do you make? How much do I have to pay you? They don't know how to say it exactly. They don't know if it's commission. They don't know if it's compensation. But how much do I pay you? And, you know, we used to have a pretty set couple of numbers that we dealt with. We kind of went by the market. And, you know, it might be 5%, it might be 6%, it might be 7%. But then it was split with another agent from another office that was also involved if Coldwell Banker sold it and I have it listed. And all that stuff was done away with in August of this past year when NAR settled with attorneys and the Department of Justice and everything else on transparency with compensation and negotiation with compensation. And now the negotiation comes in two parts. So as a seller's agent, I will be negotiating what you're going to pay me. And again, that's negotiable. So I don't want to pin percentages on you, but you know, so say it's 3% or 2.5% or 2% or whatever it is, this is what you're going to pay me to sell the house. However, that being said, how much would you like to pay the buyer's agent? Because they're not going to come to the table with an offer unless they know they're going to get, you know, compensation of some kind. And so we kind of have some of those discussions ahead of time. Then by the time I put things together, what do they really want to know? What they really want to know, two things. One is how long do you think it'll take to sell my house? And two is how much am I going to walk away with? They don't even care necessarily what the top price is. They care what the bottom price is, right? After all your costs, after your escrow fees and title fees and anything else that's going on, after all of those things, you're going to make $312,000. Give or take a buck or two, unless there's some major repairs that we can come across or something. And you can give them that number based on a combination of the market analysis you did and the other things that you know. If I wanted to get a net sheet, that's what we call them. It's a net sheet or a settlement sheet. We go to escrow. That's the best way. So if you think back through what I'm doing, I'm talking to the client about what kind of things they're thinking. And then this is all part of my pre-qualifying thing. Then I'm getting title company information to find out if they own the house, for one thing, but other than that, how many square feet and how many bedrooms and baths and things like that. And then I'm getting a hold of escrow, and I'm telling them that we're going to sell the house for $665, and their payoff on their loan is $220. And so what's their net sheet? And escrow will give you a net sheet that's not just $665 minus $220. It's going to be $665 minus $220 minus $1,700 in escrow fees or whatever it happens to be, and $1,600 title fee and blah, 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 and all of those fees and notary fees and document fees and all those fees. And so by the time everything is said and done, this is what you're actually going to walk away with. And you give them that number. And then that's what they look at. And then they can decide if that's what they need to go through the rest of their life things, their changes, their new house, their move, their boat that they're going to cruise the world in. I don't know what they're going to do. But bottom line is the bottom line. And that won't change very much unless there's, like I said, strange things that need repairing and things to make the house saleable. So if we can get a lot of those questions answered ahead of time, and we're gonna turn a video on here in a second, and he's gonna go through some of those questions, and they're also in your handouts that you have. And for those of you that are online, it has also been uploaded in the chat. I can see that it's there. And so in the chat, you'll also have access to it and things. Only thing is, where's our? Okay, I'm gonna have to pause for a second because I don't see our TV remote stuff, and I was gonna throw it up online for. Okay, we're back in business, and what we're gonna do is we're going to, like I said a minute ago, the pamphlets that were handed out in here or in the chat room, that goes through some questions and some answers and things so that you can expand on what we just talked about a little bit more. There are more questions that you can answer. There are more things that you might want to find out. And these are just ideas, of course. I mean, you may know the people well enough that you don't have to ask half of these things. But we have to assume that we don't. And so it's real easy to say, when you're talking to somebody on the phone and you set up an appointment with them, and okay, so I'll be out there Thursday at 2:00, right? And everybody who is on title will be there to hear this, so we don't have to do it 2 or 3 times, because I know you don't want to sit through listening to me 3 times or something, so we kind of make jokes about those things, but we kind of make it sound like it's that's just the way we do it. That's the way everybody does it. And then they don't think anything of it. And you just say, do you mind if I just take about 5 minutes and ask you a few questions? And they may say, oh, well, yeah, you know what? My wife's not here right now. I don't know the answer to some of those things. You don't even know what I'm going to ask you yet. So just let me ask you a few questions. It'll help me with my presentation when I get there Thursday at 2:00. And then you go through some of these questions, and actually you're going to be maybe on a phone, or who knows what you're going to be. You may be doing it online. You may be doing it face to face, but even if you're doing it face to face, it doesn't hurt to pull out the questions and say, do you mind if I ask you just a few questions? And then you go through those questions that we have that are in your pamphlet and that are online. And you will go to the listing presentation so much more prepared than if you don't. And that's what we're encouraging everybody to do. That makes most sense. That'll put you, I guarantee you, I've been in real estate it'll be 36 years in June. And I don't know how to do anything else. I don't even know if I know how to do this anymore, but I certainly don't know how to do anything else. But in those 36 years, what I can tell you is that 80% of the people, and that's not a personal survey, that's just from what I've seen from NAR surveys and CAR surveys and Century 21 surveys and whatever. If you will take the time to go through some of these questions, if you'll take the time to pre-qualify a seller before you go out to their house, you're doing better than probably 75 or 80% of the realtors out there. You already put yourself in the top 25% of what's going on in real estate. And that's where we want to be. That puts us in a position to get more listings than somebody else. And if I'm going out and I don't mind, one of the questions that you're going to see in there is, are you going to be okay, I'm meeting you Thursday at 2. Are you going to be meeting with any other agents? And they say, well, yes, we thought we'd interview 3. Okay, well, have you set those appointments yet? You know, are those appointments in line? And if they say yes, then I want to be the first one. Some people say they want to be the last one. I don't want to be the last one, because if somebody good gets in there, they may not be as good as I am, or maybe they are. But if they're in there before me, I don't even have a chance to plead my case, so to speak. I don't even have a chance to talk to them. And so if they say, yes, we've got one other appointment set up so far, and I'll ask them just right out front. So is that Thursday as well? Well, yeah, that's Thursday at 4:00. Okay, so if I come at 1 or if I come at 2, then we'll be done in time for you to meet with them. Or if I come at 10 in the morning or something, and I try to push it so that I'm first in line. And the reason I want to be first in line is because I think what I put together in paperwork to show them, what I put together in a market analysis, what I put together in a listing presentation, all of the advanced work that I put into it, my hope is that they'll be so enamored with me that they either won't do the others, or those others are going to have a really hard time comparing to what I've just told them. So I like to be in there first. Different people say different things. Well, I want to be the last one. Well, shoot, I never want to be the last one, because then there's too many opportunities for somebody else to get in front of me. I may know I'm the best. I may have the best presentation and everything else, but if somebody goes in there and talks them into something, I don't even have a chance to show them that. So I want to try to put myself in a position to actually do a presentation, because that's where I can be strongest. That's where I can be strongest in my paperwork, my support paperwork, my listing presentations that I can put together off of Century 21's websites and things, and Moxie Works and 21 Online and all of those things. In fact, we were talking about Moxie Works the other day, weren't we? Yeah. And so I want to put myself in a position to show them all I've got. I'll go in with all my guns blazing, and hopefully they'll just be satisfied enough that they'll just sign it and not even worry about the other interviews. Or if they do the other interviews, those people are going to have a tough time compared to what they just heard. I can tell you that a lot of agents, including a lot of ours, go out with just comparables. And they think that my smile and my comparables that say what your house is worth. You know, I took some time to do these comps for you, and it says that your house is worth $665. What do you think? You know, what is that? So that in mind, we're going to listen to Tony for a few minutes, and then we'll do kind of a recap on the other side. On the other side of him talking. I don't want you to think you have to wait too long.
Move away from those because you have.
Yeah.
Here's the benefits, Diane, the benefits of pre-qualifying. I really want you to understand the benefits.
A, it sets you apart to win. One of the biggest benefits of pre-qualifying is that this actually sets you apart from your competitors. I want you to see this as a competitive edge. This is not disqualifying. You're not going in with the mindset, I'm going to figure out how to not go. You're going in with the mindset, I need to figure out how to win. And this is part of the presentation, right? You know, if you have to have a lot of energy, enthusiasm with this. When I see
Yeah,
you,
okay. Mhm.
and if what I say makes sense, and you feel, you have to have a lot of energy and enthusiasm. This is part of you performing so that you can get the job. When you want, when they hang up the phone, they go, whoa, that Tony's a fireball. I can't wait to see him. It's got to be that, right? This is designed, A, to set you apart to win, okay? B, you find out about the objections. You're going to find out about the objections they may have in advance, so you have a scouting report. You can get prepared in advance. You're all set and prepared to overcome those objections when you get there live. Such an advantage. C, it keeps you focused on the activities that lead to income. Pre-qualifying keeps you focused on the activities that lead to income. Remember what I said earlier? You don't choose if a seller is going to move or not. You just get in the way. If they're not going to move, you can't convince them to move. You can't talk them into it, right? They got to pack up all their belongings. You can't talk somebody into moving, right? So if they're not motivated, wouldn't it be better for you to move yourself away from that presentation and not go there and get beat up, right? And go back focused on generating, finding better leads, finding somebody that's gonna move. This keeps you focused on activities that lead to income. Now, I know that it's an easy, natural thing when somebody says, come over, you feel like doing your job is just to run over there and it's a productive thing. But if it's not going to work out, it takes away all that time and energy from you going to find somebody that is gonna work out. I hope this is sinking in, okay? D, you're able to choose the clients you work with. Hey, in our world, we want you to generate a lot, follow a schedule, have an incredible database. We want you to do all of those things so ultimately you can be more selective in the clients you have. Now, I'm not saying you're only going to work with this unicorn, right? We all have to work with people, okay? But we don't want you to be, tied to people that really cause you all that anxiety and the frustration and the fear and all those things. There's people like that out there. By following this foundation, you don't have to do that. And pre-qualifying is a big part of that, okay? I wrote down E, it creates less client problems and more business. We have seen people in real estate, and this happens very common. They go out, they get a listing for somebody that's rude, obnoxious, they're not motivated, they're not going to follow the rules, they're not going to do what it takes to sell. You are under contract with them, okay? They're calling you all the time. They won't listen to what you say. You ask them to price. You submit an offer and they reject it. Bad, ugly. You get there's anxiety, right? And all that does is cause you not to do more business. You know the one bad apple little theory? One bad apple will spoil the bunch. That is so true sometimes with having listings. One bad listing can literally wreck your chances of getting another couple good listings. We don't want that to happen to you. So pre-qualifying solves that issue, all right? Number 10, I wrote down, nothing drains your energy and motivation faster than going on a lot of unmotivated, unqualified appointments. Okay? We know this happens, right? Hey guys, the family, hey kids, hey honey, I'm going on a listing appointment tonight. I got an appointment at 7:30 tonight. Well, do you want me to hold dinner for you? No, it's okay. You guys eat, have a good dinner. I'll come home later. I'll fix a sandwich when I get home, right? It's 7 o'clock at night. You go over to someone's house. They beat you up. You walk out without a listing. Gosh, your family was home. They were relaxing, enjoying themselves. You come home, walk in the door. Hey, did you get the listing? No, there's nothing more demotivating than that. And if you do that over and over and over again, that is a recipe for disaster. That's how you end up, beat up and not liking this job, okay? So we want you to recognize that if you go on qualified, motivated appointments, you get to walk in the door and go, hey guys, listing taken, yes, right? That is more of the idea that we're looking for, okay? 11, it's okay to lose a prospect or an appointment because of pre-qualifying. You've got to recognize that in our business, saying no, stepping away, not going on that appointment, right? It's okay to lose it, because it's better to lose that appointment now than waste your time with somebody. It's not going to work out. And then you can go back to doing something more productive. You have to accept that it's okay to recognize. Now, do you need to learn how to gracefully unset an appointment? Possibly. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, after gathering all this information, I'm going to respectfully decline our appointment tonight. May I share with you why? Well, after all of the information that I've gathered, it looks like if I were to come over, I'm just going to make you upset, okay? We're going to talk about prices you're not going to like. I'm not going to be able to provide the service. And quite honestly, it looks like your motivation to sell is a little lower than the standard of the clients that I work with. So rather than that happening, I'm just going to back out of the appointment now. I wish you the best of luck. Good luck. Go out and get the home sold if you're going to. Thank you for your time. It's okay, but you have to learn how to step away. Right? 12, spend more time pre-qualifying and less time building a relationship. Okay, they're not looking for a best friend. You're not there to bond and have, hey, let's talk about soccer kids and all that. That's not it. You have to really, don't think you're going to try to build this incredible relationship with them in this process. This is not a place, it's not even really that possible for you to bond too much over the phone like that. They haven't met you. They don't know you. They're interviewing others. Why would, don't think that. This is me presenting. This is starting to get the listing, but it's not about some kind of a relationship thing. Okay? It's very important. All right. So here's what we want to do. This is such an important section. We want to look at the homework that you have. And so the homework's a little more involved with this to get this moving. Right? So I wrote down, print several copies of the pre-qualification script and have them ready in your office, your home, and your car. You need to take our pre-qual script. You need to have a few copies at the office, a few copies in the car, at home, wherever else you might need them. Okay? Can you visualize this now? See, I imagine you understanding you've got a lead card or a lead sheet. You've been working that lead sheet. Now you convert that to an appointment. Now you've got the appointment. Then you've got the pre-qual sheet. You put all the answers on there. So you've got all their information on the lead sheet, and then you've got all the answers to the pre-qual on the pre-qual sheet. You have those two pieces of paper that you're going to take forward with you into the listing appointment. You're going to need them both, right? So you have all that as part of building up the appointment. So these sheets should come with you. This pre-qual sheet's going to come with you, and you'll see it in the next segment when we talk about the listing presentation. Okay, but you need to understand that this is a part of the process. So you need these sheets everywhere. 2, I wrote down. Incorporate immediately practice and role play of the pre-qualification script every day for a month. Okay, I would ask you to role play and practice this pre-qualification script once a day for a month. Okay? If you do that, then you're going to groove in those questions where you really get confident with it. It needs to become part of daily work that you do. When we get to the next segment with the listing presentation, you can see how that comes together. Okay, it's going to come together there. But it's a daily exercise. Okay. 3, I wrote down, you need to pre-qualify every appointment you set now and forever. You need to pre-qualify every appointment you set now and forever. So I want you to brainwash yourself, whatever you need to do, right, to adopt this idea that I only pre-qualify and I always pre-qualify when I go, that there's not really an option for that. And we also understand that in the early phases of building a career, there's such a natural instinct and desire not to. You're going to have to fight off that instinct and that desire to just run over and meet people. Let me give it a shot. Let me go. This is the first step in a process that we use that's designed to win listings. So I hope we've gotten that clear. I hope it's gotten into what you see as a major building block of the foundation of selling real estate. We've got a lot of work to do, okay? So we're in that space now where we've had several of these building blocks. Are you on track? Are you keeping your homework? Are you 100% checking off the homework? This is one of those 100% kind of things, okay? You have to do all the homework. Is there any of the homework I've given you so far that you don't like? Is there any that you're resisting? Example, are you resisting prospecting every day for 2 hours and making 20 contacts? Can't resist that. Have you not gotten your whole database put together yet and gotten it organized, and have you not called them and asked for referrals? Can't skip that. Are you sloppy on your time? Are there any parts of your time management that aren't working? Are there any parts right now of your schedule that you've noticed just it's not working? It's time to take a close look at that and either get more accountable or figure out if there's a little tiny adjustment that needs to be made. Right? We're in this little space now where the foundation is really needing to hold you up. You should be out getting leads, you should be setting appointments, you should be qualifying, and you should be earning some serious money on its way right now. Okay? So that's our little recap. Thank you so much for this building block of the foundation. I'm excited because we're getting into the good stuff, okay? So let's put this piece together and we'll keep moving forward in the construction of your foundation.
Hi, Terry.
Hello.
I have a quick question.
Okay.
First, Mike Smith went to item A, B, C, D, E. And then he went on to number 10, 11, 12. So the numbers don't seem to line up.
Oh, the video skipped or something? Because did it seem like it was,
I didn't feel like it just
feel like it missed anything in here?
just feels like when he was.
I had to go out and talk to a lender for a minute and then it's like I come back in and it was over, so I didn't know.
It seemed like it skipped, but I mean, we did skip questions. Just
Oh.
like you said.
Okay, well, I don't know exactly how to get to that point.
Is it part of the handout?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, the handout should be complete.
Yep.
So let me just look here for a second, just to make sure.
I mean, he basically started on page 44. Right, that's kind of where he started with his ABC, right? So maybe we didn't start at the beginning, but so he started basically at 9, then he went to A, B, C, D, E, and then went to 10 and 11. Well, that's where we're looking.
Okay. You're very observant. Sounds like it skipped something, but I hesitate to try to figure out how to start it all over because we'd be here for a long time. So probably.
The video didn't skip, the presenter, Mike Ferry, skipped. He started further down the list.
Oh. Okay. Well, so that just gives us a little more to recap. Even though I shouldn't have.
But Terry, if it's in the recording, that's okay. I'll go watch it.
Yeah, I hope it is. Now that you say that, I don't know. Now I'm nervous. Usually I sit in here while he's talking and hear what he has to say, and then we recap it at the end. However, today we've got a loan thing going on that a lender was asking me about. So I went out to solve that and come back and you guys are done. So I don't know what happened. All right. Well, let's just talk about a couple of things, and some of them we already we kind of touched on the first, but remember that And this is in your handout, so it's nothing magic, but remember that pre-qualifying will set you apart from your competition, and it definitely will. Because not that many people, agent-wise, will spend time doing that. And it's important that you know, and you make this determination when you're there, that you want to spend time with people that want to sell, that need to sell, that selling is like primary to them. Their motivation is high to sell. So they, maybe the kids have gone away, they've moved, maybe they're in a 2-story house and we need to get into a 1-story house. We want to be in a 55 plus association, or we're having more kids and we need a bigger house, or whatever the case may be. We want to make sure that they have a reason to sell before we spend a whole lot of time with them. There are people out there, believe it or not, that just think that because the house sold down the street, they want to know what theirs would sell for. Now, maybe you can take a little bit of time to hopefully establish a little bit of a rapport and give them enough information that they'd be willing to list with you if they ever did list. But the ones we mainly want to spend time with are the ones that have a reason to sell now, and you don't want to waste a lot of time otherwise. Keep the information, keep your packet, keep your scripts with you, because you don't know when you're going to get a call and those questions are going to be asked. Like I say, sometimes even standing in front of somebody, let me ask you a few questions. And I said that before. Do you mind if I go over a few questions with you? Oh, no, I don't mind that. And you hit those questions and things. It might be anywhere. Who knows? I don't necessarily carry it to a soccer game or anything. Couple of things, and I don't know if he touched on it or if it got skipped over somehow. But just set this as a standard in your mind. And the standard is that you're going to pre-qualify 100% of the people 100% of the time. And maybe he touched that and maybe he didn't. But the point is that if you slide back on it, doesn't take very long to slide out of those things. They say it takes 21 days to make a habit. Well, it takes 21 days to make a good habit or a bad habit. So if you don't do things for the next month or 3 weeks or whatever, then that's the habit you've established, right? If you sleep in every day for 21 days, yeah, you're going to sleep in for a lot because there's going to be more days that are going to be, it's not a big deal anymore. Hey, I lived, house stayed here, I still have a job, whatever. And so we can rationalize those things, but those habits come one way or the other.
Would you use your pre-qualification during your actual listing meeting as a review to kind of start the meeting, make sure that if the husband gave you the answers to your pre-qualification.
The wrong ones because
Yeah, exactly.
the wife wasn't there.
Are you gonna kind of start your meeting as a review of the pre-quals to make sure that everybody's on the same page?
Kind of, yeah, and that's not a bad idea. The way I do it is I do the pre-qual. And then in my listing presentation, I basically highlight all the items that they brought up as an issue. And so I make sure that I identify those things, but it doesn't hurt to go back to the questions as they're outlined here.
At some point,
Yeah.
in some way, you want to.
We're going to touch on it somehow.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of reasons for that. One of the reasons is because we want to make sure that they know that we're listening to what they have to say. And so sometimes a recap or something, okay, now you guys said that you wanted to leave in May, right? Well, yeah, May or June. Okay, good. So we've got that down and I touched on that. And have you looked into your mortgage payoff? Did you look at your coupon to see where your actual mortgage payoff was? And it's still 228 or somewhere close to that. And so, yeah, it doesn't do any harm at all. Or when you're going over the net sheet with them, which is that all important sheet that they want to know how much they're going to make at the end. Okay, this is based on the fact that you want to be gone by all these prorations of tax taxes and everything else are all done based on the fact that you want to be out of the house by June 1st. You want to be out of the house sometime in May. That's still right? And so you can tap on those things with the list or without the list, but absolutely you should go back to what's important to them. Ask additional questions, and you just mentioned it. What if the husband answered the questions and wife wasn't there when you were doing the prequal, or vice versa, or something like that, or the other partners that are involved in the sale somehow or another. That's why I always say, can everybody who's going to be involved be there so that we can have this discussion one time? And so if there's any conflicting thoughts or conflicting ideas, we can get them all, because absolutely, you know what? My wife and I have been married a really long time. We got married hot out of high school. And I know when you look at me on video, you know that I've been out of high school for a year or two. And we don't fight, but we don't always agree on things. And when I'm saying, oh, we want to be out of the house by May, and she's saying, well, I don't retire until May. My wife doesn't work, but anyway, but I want to, I don't even retire till May, and then I'll have to work on packing everything and stuff. And so she's got a different mindset. I don't think we can be out of here by May. Okay, well, now we know there's a little conflicting thing. He wanted to be out by May. She doesn't, because she thinks it's going to take her a month after she retires to pack up the house or whatever it is. But absolutely, we want to know what everybody says. And we aren't always talking to everybody on the phones. And so definitely gives them a chance to answer and ask additional questions. And you know what? You can point back and forth. It's okay. You were talking to him and he wasn't there. And so you say, okay, and you said you wanted to be out by May. Is that what you're thinking? And you can kind of bounce it back and forth between them and things. So two things happen. Now you're getting the cooperation of both of them. So you're knocking out any red flags ahead of time, hopefully. And you are acknowledging what you said when we talked on the phone the other day. And so it's kind of a dual thing there. Let's see. And this is pretty obvious. We talked about this before, but when possible, do your pre-qualifying while setting the appointment. And I think that's one of the first things I said. Okay, so I'm coming at Thursday at 2:00. Do you mind if I ask you just a couple of questions first? And then you go through some of the questions. And so you've kind of gotten that out of the way. And the number 7 on there says the beauty of pre-qualifying is it will draw out the seller's questions in advance. Because even though we're asking the question, it also helps them answer it in their own mind, because they may not have done things like tie down a specific date or time or a specific price for those things. And it helps to know all the questions in advance or find out objections in advance. So by asking the questions, you can overcome objections easier. What are you going to do for commission? Do you discount your commission? You know, I got a call the other day from one of our agents who said, somebody answered the phone. She was going to go out. It was an expired listing, and she was going to go out and talk to him. And the one thing when she was doing her pre-qualifying questions, one of the things that he threw out right off the bat is that I talked to somebody the other day who was going to list my house for 1%. Would you do that same thing? Well, I don't really know. Is your house worth $2.4 million? And 1% is still a pretty good kick. Or is, are we listing something for $287 or whatever the case may be? But that's something that you just say, you know what? I know that that's always a concern in people's minds. Let's cover that when I get down and we have a chance to sit down and talk. Or commissions are always negotiable depending on what's going on. But aren't you really concerned more about how much money you're gonna walk away with than how much I'm gonna walk away with. And you kind of, it makes them think. But it lets you know right off the bat that that's probably gonna be something that we're gonna talk about during the presentation. Now, we have to anyway, because if we fill out the listing agreement, it's gonna say that. But we know right off the bat. And that 1% that he said, I almost feel sometimes like saying, can you prove that to me? Did he put that in writing? But and I don't, but I mean, you almost feel like that sometimes because anybody can throw that out. Anybody can. Yeah, my neighbor down the street, they got theirs listed for 1%, and that certainly can happen. Let me explain to you how commissions work. And then you can say that that 1%, that's what he'll sell your house for, but that's not probably going to be the full commission. Because if he sells it himself, he's going to ask for some more commission on the buyer's side to represent the buyer. If somebody comes from another office, they're going to ask for compensation on their side. And so you're not going to pay 1%. Well, what about a flat fee? Yeah. Okay. Flat fee, 20 grand. Are you okay with that? Anyway, so wouldn't it be nice to know that that's at least a concern to them?
Sure.
Then you go out and you talk things through and it's a little easier. And remember, everything that you answer or ask or anything else, when it says on here, keeps you focused on activities that lead to income, that's not our income. Kind of is, but really we're focusing on their income to start out with. And then we want to make sure that our income is protected by the fact that we're working with people that actually want to sell and actually want to sell in a reasonable amount of time and not just thinking of it. And it goes back to what we talked about before, about making sure when you ask these questions that if they're not answering them in a way that seems right to you, they're probably not ready to sell yet. The next one on there, it says you are able to choose the clients you want to work with. And that's absolutely true. There's, had a question, had an agent call me a couple of days ago wanting to know what they had to do to cancel a buyer representation agreement. And buyer representation agreement is something we have to do now because of the settlement that happened in August. But, and we talked about it yesterday and things, but it's basically having the buyer sign something that says, or that they'll pay you to represent them. A listing is them signing something that says they'll pay you to sell the property. And so we have something written down one way or the other that identifies an income that we expect to make out of this. And if we get beat up too bad on it, or somebody tries to beat us up too bad on it, or if they're obnoxious or one person, or they can't carry on a civil conversation without cussing and swearing and telling you how much they hate realtors and lawyers and things, they put us all in the same category there, or whatever it is. Maybe we don't want to work with them. How much money would it take for you to be abused? And that's what our commission should be. Okay, if I have to put up with you, then I'm not cutting any commission, even though they're negotiable. They're also negotiable up, right? Nobody says that they're only negotiable down. They're also negotiable up. So, it just, one thing about it is that nothing drains your energy and motivation faster than going on crummy appointments or appointments where people aren't really interested in moving forward. And it is okay to lose a prospect because of pre-qualifying. Don't worry about that. We have a short saying in real estate. Next. And then we have to think about that. It's like, oh my gosh, this is turning into such a nightmare. Next, I'd be better off. I'd be in a better mental, I wouldn't lose sleep at home. You know, I wouldn't be watching Sports Center at 3 a.m. because I've got some pain in the neck client out there that I can't deal with and things. And it would just put you in a better frame of mind, which is going to put you in a better frame of mind for everything else that you're doing. And then one thing about pre-qualifying, and we get into this, and you know what, we're personable people, aren't we?
Yeah.
We like to talk to people. How's your golf game? And, oh, I see that fish mounted over the mantle, or what you like to fit. Oh, that's a big bass, right? I mean, spend less time on those things, less time on visiting, on personal relationships, and more time creating business relationships. If they're looking at you to be their realtor, I think that they want to know that I can handle their real estate more than they want to know what my handicap is. And so a lot of times and we do this because we are talkative people, we're relationship people, we do that kind of thing. But we walk up and we see a Harley parked in the driveway. And so then what do we do when we go in? Oh, I see you. Ride a Harley, and it's and I'm not saying that's not okay for an icebreaker, but don't spend a lot of time on those things. Don't spend a lot of time on, I've gone to houses before where I've had to walk around skateboards and step over big wheels and things like that. And so we can talk about kids for a minute or two. I know I can tell you have kids or grandkids because my house looks exactly the same way, whatever. But that has to be brief. I'm here for business. And don't be afraid to say that. You don't have to say it in those words. You can say, nice Harley out there. Do you ride much? And I used to ride when I was in college or whatever. And then, okay, let's get down to business. I know that you came here, or that I came here to talk to you about the possibility of listing your property. And let's move in that direction. Do you mind sitting down here for a minute at the dining room table and letting me take a quick look around your house? Well, don't you want me to walk around your house? Don't you want me to explain things to you? And I said, you can explain things to me afterwards. But at first, I just want to see it from a kind of a buyer's perspective. What would a buyer see when they came in? And I don't want to be influenced by what you think is good or what somebody else thinks is good. I just want to take a minute to just walk through. It'll only take me a minute. Is that okay? Well, I guess. And then you only take a minute. Don't be gone for too long or they'll come looking for you. So you walk around. It's all part of this is all prior to sitting down to talking about numbers and stuff. Or if we have already, and we're going to go through this when we go through the listing presentation, is we're going to talk about the added value to getting comps and things out to them ahead of time. If my appointment, today is Tuesday, if I had an appointment for Thursday, I would try to get information in their hands, whether it's hand carry it to the door or whether it's overnight mail it or whether it's email if they are comfortable in getting email, but I like to get them the information ahead of time. And then even when I walk in with a copy of the same presentation that I might have emailed to them and said, why don't you guys sit here at the dining room table, take a look at this, kind of a refresher on what I sent you yesterday or the day before, and let me go take a look around the house and we'll sit down and talk. And you just kind of move in that direction. You keep it business wise. And then when you get back to that dining room table after you've looked around, don't revert to the personal relationship thing. Oh, when I was looking around, I couldn't help but notice you had 2 other Harleys in the garage. Or I saw golf clubs out there. You're a golfer too? And no, I'm here to do business. Now, if you want to come back later and ride your Harleys up to Idlewild or whatever, go for it. But right now, we're here to do business. And so we need to keep it, if we want them to look at us as somebody who can handle this deal for them, We need to stay on that path. Make sense? Because we want to be everybody's friend. And when I say we, I mean, I think that if you look at the 4 categories of personalities and things like that, there's probably more amiable, which just means that you want to make everybody happy and you want things to all come together and stuff, than there is anything else. There's a few others. There's some that are drivers and there's some that are, expressives, and those are just personality traits that people have identified over the years, And we just want to make things happy and friendly. And so we talk to them, and sometimes we pull ourselves out of that business mindset by doing that. So what we have to do is we have to change ourselves a little bit from being too amiable to being a little bit of a driver. Here's what I'm here for. Let's get it taken care of. And then a couple of questions, and he probably covered this, or I don't know whether it was part of what was skipped or not. But if what I say makes sense, are you planning on listing your home? That's a question we ought to get out of the way early. And then we already talked about, are you planning on interviewing more than one agent? So since I don't know what he left out, do we have any questions? I put a couple of other things in your packet that don't really have anything to do with your pre-listing presentation, but it does have a little bit to do with what you're going to do for 2025. And so I encourage everybody to have some plans. When we were talking the other day in your office and things, sounded like you and your wife had some plans that this is what we're trying to do now, and this is what we want to do here, and this is what we want to do there. And that's great to have something outlined. Just like when I was saying just a minute ago that you're in business with this seller and you treat yourself as a business. You have to treat yourself as a business. You have to treat your company, which is your company. It's not Century 21, it's you.
Right.
And so you have to treat that as a business as well. You think if you went out and bought a McDonald's, any of you have the money to do that? If you went out and bought a McDonald's, you'd have to have some kind of a business plan. You'd have to have some kind of a training plan. How do I get trained on what I'm supposed to do? What do I set up with the bank? How do I know how my deposits are being taken care of? How do I know where my inventory comes from? And we have to put all these things together. So there's this whole preparation time. So when we're getting ready to go out on a listing, I'm setting up a new business for this one guy, this one gal, this one couple, this one whatever. Here's our business plan. We're going to list it for this. You can probably expect to have offers come in similar to this. You probably are going to have an escrow period of about this. I'm going to put it in the MLS today or tomorrow, depending on what time you're there. And the MLS is a multiple listing service where all of the realtors have access to it. And also where Zillow and Realtor.com and everybody gets their information. They scrape stuff off of what we put in the MLS. So I'm going to put together a description, or Chat GPT is, I don't know. Anyway, I have to tell you something about that Chat GPT, and not that it's too off topic, but my son came over to the house for Mother's Day and we had dinner and all that. And after two of my sons came over for Mother's Day, and one of them came over and he says, and we were talking about AI and GPT for some reason. Didn't have anything to do with real estate at that point. But he says, have you seen that new part of the Chat GPT? And I said, no, probably not. He says, what's the new part? And he takes out his phone and he clicked on a couple of buttons and he took a picture of our backyard. We were out on the patio eating and things, and he took a picture of it. And he says, so would you like to have anything different out here? And I said, well, I don't know, ask Mom. And so mom says, oh yeah, I'd like it to look like a resort and I'd like a hot tub over there and I want the patio extended this way. And and flowers around the edge and things. And so she told this to Chat GPT. And it took about 1 minute for that to produce an architectural rendering of the patio as a resort. And it had a covered, it had a covered area. Well, we already have a covered area, but it had an extended covered area. There was a hot tub, above ground hot tub over here on the side. There were flowers around the perimeter. And they had those light strings, had a couple of those going out there. And all that came out in like about a minute. So, I mean, we can do anything on the computers, it seems like. They can do anything on the computers too.
Mhm.
They don't need us to search. Zillow's going to scrape it. And some people say, oh, I hate that when that happens. Oh, I love that when that happens. And the reason I like it is because it gives me an additional marketing avenue. If Zillow wants to scrape my information, I'm just going to make sure that the information is good. I'm going to make sure that my pictures are good. Mr. Seller, I'm going to have a professional photographer come in here and take photos. What day would be good for you? Well, we haven't even signed the contract, I know, but I just want to be able to get things set up and rocking and rolling right off the bat. Well, we'll be here Wednesday afternoon. Okay. And I write that down, Wednesday afternoon. And then I get on the phone with my photographer before I leave the house that day. But after we've got things signed. And I say, Mia, can you come and do home photos and a drone flyover Wednesday afternoon? And then she tells me yay or nay, and we can discuss it while we're there in the house. So I'm going to do professional photos. I'm going to put it in the MLS. That's going to be scraped by somewhere in the neighborhood of 290 outside websites. So that's going to happen just like within the first 2 days. We're going to put a sign up out in the front yard so that people driving by know that it's for sale. Well, I don't know if I want all my neighbors to know. Do you know what? Probably 25 or 30% of the homes that are sold by your neighbors. They have friends that have liked the neighborhood, or they know people that have thought about it or something else. So those are big numbers to turn away if you don't want a sign out front. So this is what I'm going to do for you. So we've all done that in all of the pre-qualifying thing. We're laying out what we're going to do. Because on their side, don't you think it's fair for them to know what I'm going to do for the money I'm going to make? And it is. It just makes sense. I'm buying this. I have a love-hate relationship with Amazon. If I want to buy something specific, if I want to buy earbuds, I can go on Amazon and I can buy earbuds and they'll be delivered to me the next day. I love that about them. If I want to buy a shirt, I can go on there and the wrong shirt will be delivered. It will be delivered the next day. Okay, it won't be the right size, it won't something, or it won't be what I thought I saw in the photo. And so that's the love-hate thing. I love the fact that I can get it right away and I don't have to go shopping, but then I don't get what I want. And shoes, nobody knows what a size 10 shoe is until you try it on, because you flop in it or it's so tight on the sides or whatever. So that's that love-hate thing. Well, it's kind of the same thing when people get online. When they get online, and this is kind of a funny thing, but most people get online, and this has been done by some outside things, not us certainly, but most people are online between the hours of 11 and 2 at night. I watch the news, I watch the basketball game. I'm not tired yet. I think I'll poke around and see what's going on. And they do car shopping. They do all kinds of different home shopping things. I saw a thing, this was a couple of years ago, but QVC does most of their business in the middle of the night. so it's going to be exposed, right? So these are the things I'm going to do. And that's part of my pre-sale. Hey, Steve, that's part of my pre-sale to them. Okay. I'm not trying to talk them into anything. I'm just telling them what I'm going to do. And then they can make that decision. But you still need 3% commission, huh? Well, if I've done a good enough job in my presentation, and if I've done a good enough job explaining to them how I'm going to do it and what I'm going to do and the things that are going to benefit you and the things you have to look forward to and things, then and I ask them questions along the way. You know, I like to do open houses. Would you mind if I held an open house here for a couple of weekends? No, that's okay. Or no, it's not okay, whatever the case may be, but at least I know. If they say, oh, well, we'd rather not have an open house and have people, do we need to? Well, we can hold off on it for a couple of weeks and see what the activity level is. And if the activity level is strong on people coming to see it without the open house, then no, we don't have to have an open house. But if we're not getting people, if there's nothing driving them in the door, then let's do something to drive them in the door. We'll post signs all the way down the street. People know that you're having an open house, and I'll give them cookies and water or whatever. So you have all of those discussions prior to when you're going to do the listing. I really want that seller to answer the questions that I have, but I want to answer questions to them before they even ask them if I can. And those are the kind of things that they want to know. So I'm sorry that the computer took a dive somewhere in there, but I hope we gave you enough information that you can talk with some sellers. I was looking at the schedule while I was out there talking to the lender, and I was looking at the schedule, and the next foundations class that we have scheduled is Thursday. It is actually on the listing presentation. So we'll move from here to the listing presentation, and then on Monday, we actually fill out the paperwork for the listing, the residential listing agreement and disclosures and things. So that's kind of the process that'll follow for the next little bit. Okay. And for those of you that are sitting in here in class, you're certainly welcome to join me on Thursday. However, I'll be teaching it in San Diego. So you might want to tune in on Zoom instead. But obviously, it's always good to have people in class. It's a lot better than looking at that little roving eye up there.
Right. That's good.
Okay,
Thank you, Terry.
you're welcome. We're done for the day. Well, we're not done working. We're just done with this.
That was good. Thanks for adding all these other pieces to it. Because, so yesterday I went online and looked up, Mike Ferry's 18 things we're gonna do for you.